Acres Green Acres. Today is the 3rd of September 2024. I'm coming to you from Baker's Green Acres here in lovely Marion, Michigan. And we got some things to talk about tonight. Not a real big deal, just something that I encountered along the way here. Before that, I'd like to remind you all that we have a program called the Anyone Can Farm Tribe Plus. And that's a kind of a private group. You've got to pay to get in it. There's a monthly subscription fee. And pretty much what it's shaken out to be is a consulting service. So if you want to join us on every other Wednesday night, so tomorrow night is going to be one of our consulting nights. We go on at 8 o'clock, a Zoom call. So it's interactive. And you can bring all of your homesteading and small farm concerns to that Zoom call, and we can converse about it, face to face. And it's pretty productive. We usually say it's only going to be an hour, but almost always it's 2 hours. And I'm really starting to enjoy it because we're seeing people make real gains. If you don't have anybody to go to talk about the things that you're doing, it's trial and error, which isn't always a bad thing. That's how we got started. But you can get ahead quite a bit faster if you talk to somebody who's been doing it for a little while. We've had a pretty good level of success with it. I am still moving forward on my farm. We've been at this location for 20 years. And right now the last thing that we got into, the latest thing that we got into is milking. And I'm milking 5 cows right now. I have 2 more heifers, and I'm wanting to get to 10, right? And that's real exciting. We share the numbers on that. In my opinion, it's probably the best thing that you can do for the least amount of experience. Hello, Belva. To get yourself to the place where your farm makes enough money for you to stay home, right, and work just off the farm. Now, it's not a full-time job. It really isn't, because we only milk once a day, and we're usually done by 10:30 in the morning, and we don't start super early either. But then distribution happens all week, and we talk about distribution, how that works. In the consulting call. And then you've got to get your feed down. You have to have your facilities down. You have to know how to handle milk. So there's definitely things that you need to know. But to me, having done this long, I guess I used to say to myself, I don't know if I really want to do that, because I don't want to be that tied to the farm. But lately here, anytime I leave the farm, I'm very happy to come back. Because it's crazy out there, right? It's a crazy world now. And I go past different places. Like there's a place in Cadillac, and I went past it today. I used to work there. And I was a welder mechanic there. And I think, wow, what a different lifestyle that was, working. Because I would get there as soon as the sun came up, and when I left, especially in the wintertime, the sun was going down. And so the best part of my day, I was selling those hours to someone else. And now, milking 5 cows, I make the same amount of money before 10:30 in the morning. And there is things that go into it, and there's definitely things that you need to know. But I know a couple farms right now that are really killing it with milking cows. Copperhead, I hope they show up tonight. I got some questions for them, because it looks to me like they just bought 3 new cows. So they're in an area where raw milk goes really well. And raw milk is going to be the thing of the future, I believe now, because all the windy stories have been, discounted, and all the make-believe regulations that they have out there, they're just kind of irrelevant to what we're doing, because we do what's called herd shares. So we are selling a share of the herd. And so with that share of the herd, you get a certain amount of um, products from a cow, which most people really want milk. You can come and pet the cows. You can do cow petting, cow cuddling, all that stuff, which is actually a thing. Nobody really does it here formally. I've never had anybody make an appointment, but not that I wouldn't. If they want to come cuddle the cows, that's fine. Cows love it. So I'm real excited about it. We started out with just one cow because it was like something that was in my mind from when I was a kid. My mother would say there was 6 kids, and my mother would say, "We go through so much milk, we ought to have a cow." And we had 8 kids, and we were going through a lot of milk, and we have a farm. So how come we don't have a cow? Cows just need grass to eat, and um, so I got a cow from a friend, and she was already in milk, and we milked her, and we really fell in love with the milk, and we saw a noticeable difference in the health of our kids. When we had milk from the store in the fridge, it wasn't a big seller. Nobody really liked it. It was like we felt obligated to put milk on the table for the kids, but nobody really liked it. I didn't drink it because I'd give me a stomach ache. But regular milk or raw milk, the way it comes from the cow, uh, it's good for you. It's really good for you, and it makes a lot of improvements in your health. So that's the most recent thing that I'm doing, and I will share this with you. Last summer, about this time, we rebuilt our milking parlor. That's what they call the place where the cows come in, and there's a stanchion that they put their head through to get their little pile of grain, and you lock them in. You close the stanchion. And there's something about those stanchions. A cow will stand there all day. Matter of fact, in the old days, they used to leave the cows in the wintertime. They left them in all winter long. Um, I'm not exactly sure why that. I've heard that they really desperately needed the manure. And so they didn't want the cows out dropping the manure all over the barnyard. And I've also heard that the winters were really tough on the cows, and that they uh, needed to keep them in. Now, I think our cows are a lot more hardy now. They have access to inside here, but they generally, during the day, they want to be outside. And then especially if it's cold and rain, they'll come in. If it's hot, super hot, they'll either go out and get under the trees, or they'll come in. Um, and if it's really blowing, then they'll come in, right? But other than that, they prefer to stay outside, and I think their health is a lot better because of it. I couldn't imagine locking them in all winter long and then having to pick up 50 pounds of manure behind them all day long. So uh, that's how we do it. We bring them in the parlor when we milk, and then as soon as they're done milking and they've finished up their grain, they get a little bit of grain just to entice them to come in, and we give them a sweet feed, it's called. So it's whole grains, small grains mostly, a little bit of corn in there. We're not big corn people, but I don't think a little bit's going to really make that much difference. I see a lot of it goes through them, right? So, but the grains don't seem to go through them. And then the rest of the time, they're just on dry hay in the wintertime, and in the summertime, like now. And I want to talk about that tonight. They are on green grass, right? So, yeah. So today we worked on the room that's adjacent to the milking parlor, which is, my barn was designed to milk 10 cows. And I never knew that. I lived here for 18 years before I figured out, oh, that's where they used to milk the cows, because there was no stanchions left in there, and there was just a concrete sill, and that was where the stanchions were mounted, and they would eat off that concrete, their treats. And back in those days, they would just fork hay off of the hay mow, which is directly above them, down into their feeders. And we don't do it that way. We put round bales out for them, so we want them to go outside. Um, so I'm doing a little differently. If I learn different and I see the light and I decide to keep them in all the time, I'll tell you why. But at this point, I don't think that's what we're going to do because we're just not going to do it. So anyway, the milk house is just separated. There's just a wall, and then there's a different roof. So it's a completely different room. And when we bought this farm, it was all broken up concrete in there, and it was just full of junk. The roof was coming in, and we really didn't know what it was for. I had heard it was a milk house, but what's a milk house? But what the milk house is a cleaner area than the parlor, so the cows never go in there. And when you milk the cow, you bring the milk in there and you do whatever it is that you're going to do with it. You could have a cream separator in there. You could have just your cooling vats in there. There's many different ways to do it. It could be a place where you separate the cream and make the butter, for instance. You could. And then you're not bringing all that stuff up into the kitchen of the house. And then you would have sinks in there so you can clean your milking equipment. And we reconfigured it this year. We put a new floor in with drains, and the drains go out to a drain field or a drain tank. I don't actually have a field in because everything that drains out of there, also the butcher shop drains into that tank. And my plan is to pump the water out of there. So it would have, from the butcher shop, it would have blood, it would have manure, and small pieces of fat and meat. And from the milk house, it will have milk and just wash water. We don't use a lot of Clorox or anything like that. I've gotten away from all of that. It seems like you're better off if you just keep a level of cleanliness that smells good and looks good. If you go in there with a microscope, I don't care what you clean with, you're going to find things. But I believe that the system balances itself. So with that said, if you were to go into my milk parlor, even after the cows have just been in there, you might smell the cows, but there is not that heavy smell of manure and urine because we took all the concrete out of there. So it's just dirt, and then we bed it with straw. So I buy straw just for that. And so, but we go through about a bale a week. And then when it gets a little wet or there is manure in there, we'll rake that out. And that is the basis for our composting program, which is part of the system. And this is what I do want to talk about this tonight too, because I had a conversation with a friend last night, and he's finding his way, but he's been in farming his whole life. So he has a way. They have a way that they do it. And when I heard him, I thought, wow, I would really like to share with him our way, and so we could compare notes a little bit. And he's not exactly open to that because he's got a lifelong of experience at it, and I'm new. I'm in it for 20 years, so I'm the new guy. So I just a lot of the conversation is just in my head, but as I started this morning, it came to me what I wanted to talk about tonight. And so building out this milk house has been really, really fun because there are two stories there. And the first story, concrete floor, we're building the walls, we're putting the plumbing in now for the sink, possibly a shower stall. I want to have a washer machine in there and a dishwasher in there for the bottles, right? And so we're doing that, and that's real exciting. I removed the south wall last week and then rebuilt it with new lumber. and installed a really nice window that I got from my son. He was doing a remodel on his house, and it was a 3 compartment window, and 2 of them crank out. And just the configuration of this thing is really neat because we've learned from our buddy Aaron about barns and how they were designed. It took hundreds of years for them to come up with this design, and you see them all over the county. And with the windows open in the milk house, there's a natural draft all the time that goes through there, and it just goes up through the large part of the barn, mixes with the heat that's coming off the hay that I have stored in there. I have 60 bales, round bales in there that I cut this summer. You dry them the best you can, but still they're going to dry down, and you want that moisture to be able to exit the barn. But the barn draws, and so there's a nice breeze in there, and I believe that there's not a fly problem in there because there's always air going through and it's moving them out. We don't have a lot of flies here anyway, and that's part of today's talk. I mean, everything on a functional, traditional farm, and I go between homestead and small farm. I'm there's a distinction there, right? Every process that you have should fit together, and you get a benefit out of it. So if you go to the feed store, for instance, you'll see these contraptions that they have and these strips that you can put up, and it'll show a pile of dead flies under it. And I've been in some of the big dairies, where they're milking 3,000 cows 24 hours a day, and the fly problem is real. It is real, right? Because the entire facility is completely out of balance. No sunlight gets in. It's wet all the time inside. There's way too many cows in there that never get to see the light of day, or they never get to see direct sunlight, right? They can look out, I suppose. Some of them can. But with a system like we have these little birds that make nests in the barn. And some of the nests have been there since we got here. And they use them year after year. They make them out of mud. And they're barn swallows found like a little cloud inside the barn. And they're taking flies. They're eating flies. So we don't knock their nests down, because we want them to keep coming back. I even put bird houses up for them everywhere. I put them around the garden. I put them around we have a little area with a picnic table and a campfire. I have them there. I have them all around the pig pasture, out by the chickens. So I encourage them to come and nest here, and we have lots of them. They're neat little birds. Really like them. So we were working on that today. Real exciting. Thinking about insulation right now, how we're going to perform that, and how we're going to heat it. I have to fit doors and windows into the existing barn, and I want this milk house to be heated to 40 degrees in the dead of winter. So I'm going to put a heater in there, and I'm being very judicious about where I run gas lines. I don't want them going deep into the barn where they can get stepped on or abrased in any way. So the milk house is the closest to the tank, and that's as far as they're going to go. We're putting a heater in there for the water, an on-demand water heater, which I have. And right now it's installed in the butcher shop, but I'm moving it tomorrow, and then we'll backfeed the butcher shop out of it, because the demands for hot water in the milk house will be daily, right? And right in that area, occasionally outside of the milk house is a concrete strip pad. And if you have to degrease something, you can just pull it in there and hit it with hot water, and it's very effective. So the whole thing is coming together. And if you come here, you'll see kind of a work area where we can do lots of different things, and maybe not all at the same time, but we only have so many personnel, so it's not too often that we're doing, chicken butchering and cattle butchering at the same time. Matter of fact, we never do that. But a lot of times we are milking cows and butchering chickens at the same time. Two different crews going to it. And when I say crews, I say like on Fridays, me and Rachel milk. So we're the milking crew. And everybody else is working the chicken line, which is, you can see them, you can call over to them. It's all under roof. So we can work in inclement weather. And this has all kind of come together in the last couple of years. We were a little bit spread out before. It was our first time doing this. And, as you go, like I say, you're always wanting to fortify your position, always make things better, easier, more streamlined. And so that's happening. So we have more time, we have more resources. Um, Milking is very profitable these days. It is very profitable. So you can turn the profits from that back into the operation and you can make it better, cleaner, more efficient, just so that you can milk a greater number of cows. I don't like to say never too much, but want to be I don't want to be milking any more than 10. 10. That's going to be my limit. But when we're at 8, we may stay there. I've told you guys a lot of times that I've read a book. I've actually studied the book. It's called 80 Acres. I highly recommend it if you're going to be in small farms. And it was written by one of the sons of a man that lives probably 3-4 miles away. He's gone now. His name was Jess Jaeger or Jaeger. I'm not sure how they pronounced it. And his son wrote this book, 80 Acres. He's gone now. And it was all about Missaukee County living. This is a heavily Dutch area. They settled here. Irish settled down south of us, and Germans, a lot of them over in Wisconsin. But these were a lot of Dutch people, and they have a certain way about them. There's good and bad, but hardworking people and smart, good with money. And so there's a lot to learn in this book. But Jaegers only milked 8. That was the most they ever milked. And that was kind of like their consistent crop that went out every day. So their main harvest off their fields would have been hay to feed the cows. And then they did other things too, like they'd put in a field of pumpkins and they'd sell them, or they'd make things out of them. They processed on farm and they made, they dried stuff and they made stuff, and then they would take that into the store and they would sell it or trade it for goods, and they did well. These people were landowners, and in the early 1900s, that was a big deal. If you own land, you had a lot of equity in the land, and we still do. Still, that's the way to go. The title of tonight's conversation is I had to draw out of my bank account. I thought that would get your attention, but it's not what you think. So, a little housekeeping. November 1st is going to be our 14th year of Homestead Hog Harvest. And this is a very successful program was started here at Baker's Green Acres 14 years ago. And we allowed people to come on the farm and we butchered pigs. At first, people were kind of watching and a little bit of helping, but I started to see where these people are leaning forward. They want to get their hands in it. And so then we went from 1 pig to 2 pigs, class size of 12. So once a pig is slaughtered, scalded, and scraped, and eviscerated, it's split in 2. So that means we have 4 teams of 3 people. And it's the first day we kill the pigs, we bleed them, we scald, scrape, eviscerate. Um, that's gutting. And then we split them. And then those carcasses, and we're finishing up about 7 o'clock at night. First day we start just after lunch. So there's a little bit of a push to get done. It used to be we were not under any kind of overhang. So if we had bad weather, just had to suck it up. And as far as lights, we were out there with flashlights. But now we have the overhang and we have a nice hoist up high. And I have lights in there now. So there's not going to be as much of a push. And then the halves are taken right into the butcher shop, laid out on tables so you can see everything. And then day 2, which is Saturday, then we're breaking them into what's called primal cuts. There's 5 of them, and you'll learn what those are in the class. I don't want to give anything away. And then we break those primal cuts down into subprimals. And so now you start seeing, oh, that's where pork chops come from. And, oh, bacon. Everybody likes bacon. Jowls. Oh, that's where they come from. Head. What do you do with the head? Oh, we'll show you. So in the homestead hog harvest, it's a little different than, say, industrial hog harvest, where one guy makes one cut all day long and you throw away a lot of it. We don't want to throw away anything if we can help it. So then we prepare the organs and we even go through how to do that. And then the first night for dinner, Jill has a way that she prepares them, and then it's all put out buffet style. You can take what you want, and there's a little bit of peer pressure because people are kind of like, well, I'm not going to eat that. But when you smell it and you see it and it's fresh, it's actually very good. So we eat liver, heart, pancreas, caul fat. We don't do anything with the stomach yet. And I keep saying we're going to. We have before, but we don't in the class. We don't do anything with the intestines yet. I say, because the process is about a 2-day process or 3-day process. And so we are buying in skins for our sausage making. But we kind of go through how you do it. We just don't do it. You can spend a lot of time doing this, but what we want to do in homestead hog harvest is hit like the mountaintops, the high points that most people are going to encounter when they go home the next weekend and they process their own pig. So the idea is that you should be able to leave here, and many have, and then start processing your own animals. And what I say, and I believe this, is if you can process a pig effectively, you can process a goat, you can process a sheep, you could process a beef. Beef's a lot bigger, so you need handling equipment. But if you don't have it, you can still make something to eat out of it. You can, but with the price of beef these days, you got to be a little careful. But the philosophy is kind of like, hey, just go for it. If it doesn't look quite right, okay, it'll still fry up in the pan and you can still eat it. You're not going to ruin anything by making a bad cut or anything like that. I mean, a lot of the wives' tales that are out there, like, well, if you cut into the guts, it ruins the animal. That's not true. That's why God made hoses with nozzles on the end so you can spray the guts off if you do cut into them. And it happens every now and then. It happens. We just spray them out. It's okay. And then day 3, we're starting to get into curing, stuffing sausages, going through more of the recipe end of things, what you use, what you don't use, what to look out for, what can happen, what should happen, and very basic recipes for making bacon. And then you can tweak it. You can make it a little different if you want. Um, you're not going to kill yourself. You're not going to kill yourself unless you get a piece of meat that has black and green mold on it, and you eat it anyway. You're not going to hurt yourself. We're certain of that because we've had our share of mistakes along the way, and even in the class we make mistakes, and then we say, "Oh, this is how you fix this." But it's a really good class. I think there's 6 people signed up right now, so if you hesitate, you might not get in. And I don't think we're going to do 2 of them this year because we have so much going on the farm. We also do a homestead charcuterie class, which is the carry on of the homestead hog harvest class. And that's when we get into making prosciuttos, again, bacons, a little bit, tweaking that a little bit and making what's called pancetta and a little bit more intense sausage making, and that is a 2-day class. So in that class, we don't kill. When you get here, the halves are laid out. We do go through the primal cutting one more time, and it really is a class that's designed for a person that's taken homestead hog harvest and then wants to take the next. I highly recommend it because they're skills that you will have for the rest of your life, and you will recoup what you spend on the class very, very quickly by processing your own animals. And if you're going to do this, if you're in homesteading or you're in small farms and you don't plan on leaving, this is one of the skills that is going to move you along faster. As a matter of fact, our butcher shop is another one of those things like milking where there is a consistent income from. It's consistent, right? It's not, we don't just butcher. I don't want to do just one thing. I was of that mindset for a long time. I just want to do one thing really good. But we found that that's not a good idea. That's not a good idea. And I want to go into that tonight. So that's coming up November 1st, 3 days. You have to get some lodging downtown at this point. Our lodging here is not finished. Oh, in the milk house upstairs, we're building an apartment. So that's going to be really nifty. Going to have everything in it. So when we have people like Belva and Gary that decide they're going to come and see Baker's Green Acres in person, you don't have to go downtown to stay. You can stay right in the apartment and then leave from there to make your trip back. So it's not as burdensome. And we have people come visit us all the time. And I kind of feel bad about turning them downtown. So I'd like to have a nice apartment that we keep open just for people that come and visit and want to see things up close and personal. Also, I do consulting, and there's on my farm consulting, which is good because I can show you examples. And then when we have a sit down, we can keep referring back to that example, right? And if you don't have it built on your farm, and I just say, well, I would build a butcher shop here, and you don't know what that looks like, it's a little difficult. It's more difficult to do. But if you see one that's built, oh, that's all you need to have. And then I can even throw in like, well, one of these days we're going to have one of these. And one of these days we're going to have one of these. Then you can get an idea of how to do these things. I had the benefit of a friend on our first homestead in Montana that was our butcher. And through a chain of events, he got way too busy. Another butcher shop burned down and he got all their business. He got way too busy and he couldn't do our stuff. And he says, why ain't you doing that? Because I'm sort of the jack of all trades. I do all kinds of things. And he says, how come you ain't doing that? That's what he said. Dan Isaacson. And I said, because I don't think I know how. He says, well, you didn't know how to ride a bike when you were born either. But, and so then I went up to his shop, helped him a couple of nights. Hey, I can do this. Must be getting ready to rain out because I hear my Jeep running. Somebody must be going to put it in. And so I had the benefit of that. And then I built I had a small building on the farm in Montana, and I converted it into a butcher shop. Not much of one, but it was a place where we had a couple of tables and a bandsaw and a little rail to hang things up on. It was a really small building, and I learned a lot in that. And I made a lot of money too. I made a lot of money because when we would shoot a pig, butcher it, cut and wrap it, I was taking it into work and selling it. And I would come home with this extra money, like, wow, look at this. Because pigs kind of grow, you do have to feed them, but that's a subject for another time too. Okay, so that's coming up, and I highly recommend that you do that. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. And if it's Brian Jacob and you just want to come hang out and take the class again, I highly recommend that you do it. Okay, and I want to talk to you about frozen milk too. We're freezing milk now, and it's working out really well. But okay, so the subject tonight, or the title is, I had to dip into my bank account, right? And you might be thinking, bank account? What's he talking about? Because my philosophy has evolved over time. But now that I'm in this farm and it's real life, it's what I do every day. We have a plan, we have direction, we are making a living, and we are loving it. We are loving life here. And it's working out the way we wanted it to. Not at first. It took time. You had to stay with it and keep going to work even when you didn't want to, and all that good stuff, which you have to do with anything. But it is working out now, and I have plans to make it work even better, right? There's no reason why on an 80-acre farm you shouldn't be able to make a white collar salary. There's no reason. It's just that we don't know how. There's no training out there. But somebody who has waded into it and taken the hard knocks, you learn things. And the more you learn, the more open you are to learning, and the more opportunity you see, the more abundance you see just in the creation that we live in, right? So on this farm, when I got here, there was a lot of grass, right? There wasn't any fences. There was the remnant of fences, but they were all gone. There was a few posts here and there and some nasty wire that had to be cleaned up. And at first, we looked at the other farms around here, and hardly anybody grazed cattle. Hardly anybody. So you didn't see a lot of fence building going on, and didn't know what to think of that. Didn't know anything about grazing cattle at that time. I did go to an extension course on grazing. I went 2 years in a row. It was fascinating. The extension service gave it. They didn't give it. We had to pay for it. And it was pretty good. I learned a lot. I wish the extension service would do more stuff like that. The extension is the extension of the university, right? But most of the stuff that they do is chemical application and things like that, stuff that we don't get involved in. And I don't even know if they do the grading school anymore. I haven't heard it advertised. But basically what that comes down to is you have to feed cattle grass, right? We don't feed them silage. Silage, you see piles of silage. What that is corn that they grind up, stalks and all, and then they put it in bunks. They pile it up, then they squish it down with heavy tractors, and then they put tarps over it. Then they put tires on top of that to hold it down, and it ferments. And there is nutritional value in it. Cattle do not like to eat it unless that's what you feed them. And then they get used to it, and that's what they eat. but it's not really the design for a cow. Cows are designed to eat grass. So when you're feeding them silage, I think they think that they're gaming it and they're getting more, but they're also feeding them a ton of grain, and cows aren't designed to eat grain either. And so they get maximum milk production, and their thing is always maximizing everything, wringing out every bit of profit out of everything. And that was sort of the conversation that I was having with a friend of mine last night at the campfire. And several years ago, I got a book from Haven's brother. I can't think of his name right now. And it was Kicking the Hay Habit. It's called Kicking the Hay Habit. And what the hay habit is grass farmers have gotten into this place where they are taking every blade of grass that they can off and baling it, and then they're selling it. So when you do that, you have to have very uniform bales, have to be high, and you have to store it. So you get a lot of storage, you got a lot of money wrapped up in equipment to make it. And then you've got a lot of time wrapped up in transferring it. Somebody comes, they want to buy hay. Oh, I only need 2 bales, but I'll be there at 2. And so you're waiting for them. And then they take 2 bales and you think, wow, I just waited for, to sell 2 bales of hay. So selling hay can be tedious. And I've never liked it because people always question, well, how much percentage is this? It's like, how should I know how much percent? I can make something up. I'm going to send it in to have it tested to see what the percentage is? No, I'm not going to do that. So I'm kind of down on the whole, well, let's complicate this whole thing. I'm down on that. Let's keep it simple. You put a bale in front of a cow, the cow eats it, the cow gives you 5 gallons of milk. Okay, good. Let's just keep it simple. So when I was hearing my friend talk last night, he was scrambling, didn't even know if he could come over. We had a little get together, a little campfire, because had to get all the hay in. Well, my hay's been in now for a couple of weeks. I've been primarily done with it. And I have what I need for the winter. Am I feeding bales of hay now? No, absolutely not. Because I built fences, and I build fences every year. I'm always building fences because it's better for me. I think it's better for everybody. I think it's better for the world for you to take off the hay that you need in your first cutting, which is the heaviest cutting, store it. That's your winter feed. There's no grazing when there's 2 feet of snow on it, like there is here. And then graze until you can't graze anymore. Like with beef cattle, they'll kick down through the snow and get green grass in December. Believe it or not, if that grass gets high enough before snow flies, it's still green. And it may be dried down, and it may not really be growing, but it's still got a lot of nutritional value in it, probably more. And I could prove this, but I haven't proved it, but probably more than that hay that you stored in the barn. Because the hay I store in the barn has to be pretty dry before you can bale it. Where this stuff's sitting out in the field, it's getting rained on, it's got snow on it, and the cattle will kick down through it just to keep eating. So what we want to do is we want to let the cows graze as long as possible, and then we start feeding them hay. Okay. Now, when you're grazing, you're doing a couple of things. All right. The cows are getting what they need. They are disturbing the ground, right, with their hoofs as they're walking around. They're breaking it up. You want that. You don't want to put them on a 2-acre lot and think that, well, this is effective, 20 cows on 2 acres, because then they're on it too much and they will compact it. But if you have a little bit of acreage, especially like I do, that is not tillable, it's too wet and there's too much stuff growing out there, and it's too hilly, and I don't know about rocky because I never tried to till it, but it's got way too much water on it. But the cows will go out there and they'll stand up to their knees in water and eat grass that grows up through the water. They'll do that. We have this Reed's canary grass that was planted here in the 40s that grows, 6 feet tall, and they like it in the spring, and then they like it again in the winter. But in between, they don't like it so much because it's pretty rough stuff. So when the cows are out on pasture, they're distributing their manure in that pasture, which is good because the bacteria that's in their manure is going to become part of the ecosystem out there, and it's fertilizing. It's bringing the fertility up. The fertility comes up when the bacteria count comes up, right? So I don't have any manure management when that's going on. In my case, my beef cows are separated from my milk cows, and they have a pond that they can go to. That's very beneficial. I've told you, you've probably heard me say this, that a beef cow is going to drink about 10 gallons of water a day. And so if you have 20 of them, that's a lot of water. That's a lot of run time on your pump. Or if you're using city water, that's a lot of run time. So you don't want that. So worst case scenario, we would have to go down there with a spud bar, and we'd have to break ice. Last year, we only did it one time. And I don't think we even really needed to do it because the cows, they keep it open. It's a private pond. It's mine. And I don't mind if they are walking in it. I encourage them to walk in. It keeps their hooves nice and moisturized, right? Also, that pond is an irrigation pond. So when they stir it up, they put a lot of material into the water. And when we irrigate out of it, we're putting that material on the fields. So, there's a double kick that you got going there. And that's what I'm getting into my account, my bank account. So this morning, I have my grandkids here, and they wanted to go for a Jeep ride, and they were going to be leaving at 10. And it's like, we got stuff to do. We don't have time for a Jeep ride. But then I thought, well, you know what? I need to set a temporary fence. So let's do that. You guys can help me, and we'll get a Jeep ride in. So we got in the Jeep and we drove way down into the back on a field that I had cut in July. At the end of July, I cut it. It was very thick. I got a lot of hay off of it, and that's all I need. I don't need to cut it again. My second cutting, it's the same number of passes with the machinery, but you're going to get a quarter of the bales. So to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially if I have enough hay. So I wasn't going to cut it, but I hadn't been down there in a month. And I went down there, and when I drove through the field or around the field, I was blown away by how much grass was down there. And I realized, whoa, this is fenced. It's adjacent to where my beef cows are. And all I have to do is pull a gate, and they're in on 10 acres of really nice pasture. And I saw that, and it's just kind of like, wow, look at what I have available to me. I didn't even think of it. Not that I've never grazed that before, but I have a little situation going on. My herd is separated. The beef are on one side, and the dairies are on the other side. And if they get close, they want to be together. And so I have to keep them separate. And they'll look at each other and beller, but I don't want them to mix because getting them separated again is a chore, and I don't want that to happen. So we don't let them share a fence line by any means. So I was trying to think to myself, okay, well, how am I going to do this? And so I went to the top field to see, I wonder what kind of growth we got up there. And it was like, holy smokes, this is loaded with grass too. Same thing. I cut it in July. So what we did is we set a temporary fence, which is you have these step-in posts, and then there's a poly wire that goes on there that connects to the electric fence on both sides, and the cows stay away from it. Cows don't like getting shocked, and especially if there's plenty of feed, they'll never go near it. Even the new ones don't go near it. It's very, very effective. So we set that fence, and I just have this feeling coming over me, this feeling. And the best way I can describe this feeling is Easter egg hunting when I was a little kid, where you are looking places where normally there is nothing other than, the couch cushion or just stuff in the house, boring stuff that's been there your whole life. It's just stuff. And then all of a sudden, whoa, an egg. And in that egg, there's M&Ms, which my mother didn't let us have that stuff except Easter. We could have that. That's the morning when I discovered, wow, there is a lot of feed here, because I know that when my cows go out on that, my dairy cows, the next day their milk is going to reflect it. We're going to get more quantity, better quality, better cream, and overall it's a more healthy product because they're eating really supple, highly chlorophylled grass that's wide, that can really soak up the sun. So it's charged, it's really charged. And I also know that them up on that field walking around, they're going to disturb it. These fields are not wet at this point. I do have some fields that are wet that I couldn't let the cows on, but these ones are not wet. They're just right. And what happens then is they break the sod open, and seeds that are in there can germinate. And even this time of the year, you can have brand new grasses that germinate, and then they're ready to go next spring. So for the health of the field, it's good to have these cows out there walking around. Now, I've got total 7 animals that I'm milking. So on a 10-acre field, I'm not worried about them doing any damage. If there was 50 of them, it'd be a different story. But 50 cows is a lot of cows. Now, you may think, well, my grandfather had, or my uncle has. This is into the whole bank account thing, I think. If I had more than 10 cows here, milk cows, I would be not in an abundant situation that I am now. I have more grass than I have cows. And that is a feeling, and not in a long time, because like I tell you, I may be going down rabbit holes here. We're talking in circles, but I don't feel like it's a good thing for me to just store dollars in the bank. I don't think that's good, because I see currency going down, but I see farm products going up. I see equity in property going up, right? So my storage of wealth is in this property, in this facility, in this process, right? So my bank account, my bank, right? My bank is in this property. So when I see a 10-acre field, and here we are right into September, I'm going to slide right into November with the field that I have. Easy, easy, easy. And then the fields that I was grazing just yesterday are going to recover, and I will slide into December on those fields, right? Because we're still growing now. We're still having hot days. We're going to have 80 degrees tomorrow, and our soil is plenty. I mean, it's not the flush or anything, but we're still getting growth for sure. Make no mistake about that. And if I keep the cattle off of it, especially in the late season, you're going to have grasses that come out that you don't see in the early season, right? And they're usually the dark green grasses that the cattle don't even like, right? Until it gets cold. And then they like it. They'll go down, they'll go crazy on it. So when I said I was dipping into my bank account, I felt like I had an abundance. And here we are in September. I felt like, whoa, I'm not counting the bales going into winter. I'm not even getting into my bales yet. I don't even need to. And I don't think I'm going to get into them until probably December. Probably December, depending on what we get for snow. You know, like generally with dairy cattle, I don't want them working very hard, and they're a lot more fragile than the beef cattle anyway. So if anybody starts on hay, it'll be the dairy cows. Where the beef cows, I can push them to a field that hasn't been grazed yet this summer, but isn't fenced. I want to fence it. I want to do a lot of things, but if I could get them in there, you know, they would be in there for a long, long time, you know, and I wouldn't have to start bailing them. And with the beef cattle, anyway, a lot of them wind up going through the butcher shop starting in December anyway. So mouths to feed diminish as we get deeper into the season. So it's not like they're cows that, you know, brood cows that I have to keep until spring. You know, we're going to beef them starting December 1st. And so, you know, I know that their numbers are going to drop. Calves come online behind them, but they're small and they don't eat much, and they get to go through next summer and the summer after that, you know. And so we have several different groups that we're growing at one time. You can do that. They will live together. They don't know that they're small or that they're big. They don't know that. So my bank account, I was thinking about my bank account. Where do I store wealth on the farm? Where do I store wealth? You know, like most people, if you're living in town, your wealth that you save from you work at the factory and you pay all your bills and you have a chunk of money left, you're going to save some of it. You put it in the bank, or you put it in a safe in your house. Currency. If that's where you live, that's what you have to do, I suppose. Or you could invest it in gold or silver or other things that gain in value. Guns always gain in value. It's a good investment. But if you have a farm, you can invest that money back into the farm, and then you can. So where is my wealth? Where is my bank? You know, and I started thinking that through today with my conversation that I had with my friend last night. And I realized that his operation, he is got himself set up so he has to sell hay like crazy to make the payments on his equipment. I don't, because I have older equipment. I can get away with older equipment because I can go slower with less horsepower. I brake less, and I'm still getting what I need to operate. He's got to get the maximum number of bales off to sell it. And he was kind of lamenting last night that, well, everybody had so much hay this year that the price of hay is down. You can get a round bale this year for $40, which that's a lot of forage right now. If I had a massive building, I would be filling it with hay. I would, because what happens is hay goes down and then cattle goes up. The price of cattle goes up, right? That's just the way it is. And then it's always flip-flopping, right? But if you have a bunch of hay like from last year, it's still good. And then the price of cattle goes down, well, you can buy because you have feed for them. But a lot of times people wind up selling cattle because they don't have feed, and they have to sell them what? Cheap, right? So you can get a good deal on them. And then my philosophy on that is totally different than everybody else's. Like, I was talking to this other gal that was at the campfire, and she works for a company that does um, like charitable work, and they raise calves and then they sell like 50 of them a year, and they sell them to the sale barn, and they get nothing for them, you know? And I said, gee, you could really, and she didn't want to hear this, but I said, gee, you could really make a killing on that if you just got it butchered and then you sold the meat in like quarters or bundles or even cuts. You can really do well. She don't want to hear that because they think that you got to have some special license or something like that to do it. So that's what they think. And you're never going to talk them out of it because they don't really want to do it. It's a charitable organization. So long as they break even, everybody's getting their paycheck. They don't care. You know, it's not a private business where, you know, if it was run like a private business and you had profits, then you can build more facilities. You can service more people, you know, but they don't really think that way. So, um, so I must say that when I get something built that I've decided that I wanted to build because it's going to make the process easier, cleaner, more efficient, that is my bank. Because now I can produce more milk, which is going to produce more money, and it exponentially moves up, right? Whereas if you put $2,500 in the bank next year, this time, you got $2,500 in the bank. Maybe they're even taking money away from you for keeping it in their bank. Who knows at this point? I don't really know. It used to be you'd get 3% on your money in a savings account. You don't get that anymore. Even real good money market accounts, I don't think you get a fair gain. In my opinion, if you have $50,000 in a money market account and you're getting 8%, I don't think that's that good because they're loaning your money out at much higher percentage than that. I think you can invest money in your own process and do better if you put your mind to it and you think about this all the time, like I am. I told you guys last week, I've had a feeling in my gut for a long time that small farms are coming back with a vengeance, because we have people who are motivated, qualified, and smart that are getting into farming now. They're punching out of the system, the cubicle system, or the meritocracy. They're punching out of that, and they're getting into something that is actually real. Actually real. Now, you can have a high-end job working for some big company and you can take home 100 grand a year, but where do you have to live? How do you have to live? What do you have to bend the knee to? Is that quality of life? People are saying, no, I don't want to do that. I only have one life to live. I want to live a quality life. So even if you're a little poorer, but it's quality, you're better off. You're going to live longer. You're going to love life. I talk with people my own age that at my age, they're kind of thinking retirement and they have no plans after retirement. None. Where I got it planned out way, way out. I got a lot of things that I want to do, but that's because my bank is also involved in this process, right? And The thought process is with me all the time. I like to hang around with people that think like this. And so a lot of times when we have our classes, I'm with people who think like this and we can share ideas. We had a little campfire last night with a few trusted friends, and we had a lot of ideas getting thrown around at the campfire. And there was a time when some of my ideas were thought to be kind of crazy. But now people are kind of like, hey, you were right. That worked, you know? And other people are kicking out ideas too that are very good, need to be fleshed out a little bit, but can be. And I did tell you last week about my encounter with that producer, the guy that's doing a series on food security in America, and it's being looked at the highest levels of management within the federal government. So, as many of you may know, you may not know, in small farms, like if I go to the USDA and try to get a loan from them to build facilities, they want to know what you're doing before they'll give you the loan. Have a good day. They're not interested in helping you with that, right? But if you're going to milk, oh yeah, we can write you a loan, very low interest loan, and maybe you don't even get it paid back the next year. You might have to roll it over into the next one, and so on and so on. If we could do that, you wouldn't have people who are in small farms and work in a part-time job or a full-time job. You don't see the factory farmers with part-time jobs. You don't, because they get gigantic subsidies for what they're doing. But the USDA and actually, they are not interested in what we are doing. They're not. They have made the decision to funnel all public funds that are given out in subsidies to factory farms. And what are we getting? We're getting poor health. We're getting environmental pollution. We're getting runaway immigration. Yeah, that's who works there. They're not employing good old apple pie Americans. They're not, because they pay so low that apple pie Americans just can't do it. Shot across the bow, says Brian. All right. So that was my thing. And I thought, what a wonderful thing that I have here, because like my beef cows, to feed them for 30 days, if you put a price tag on that, it's pretty expensive. That's why the price of beef is so high, right? But if you have, all of a sudden you discover, whoa, I've got 10 acres here with some really nice grass on it. It's like, yeah, that's my bank account. That's where my wealth is. Thought I'd share that. I thought that was pretty cool. Now, what else was I going to talk about here? I had an idea along the way. Oh, part of this experience is learning diversification, right? So let's say that you live in a subdivision, and everybody that lives in that subdivision works at one of 4 companies. You all leave for work at the same time. You're all getting back at the same time, and you're all kind of firing up the barbecues at the same time and cracking beers open at the same time. That's not a very balanced community, not very balanced. It's quite unbalanced. And it sort of reminds me of a factory farm. A factory farm, like there's one north of us. I talk about it all the time. We don't even know who owns it anymore. Jill and I were talking about it today. We went by the guy's house whose name was on it when we first moved here. And then it was just 20 cows. And he took the bait and just got all these loans, and then boop, boop, boop. Now it's huge. I think 3,000 cows they milk around the clock. I don't think anybody speaks English there. It's a stinker. It's a real stinker. And I'm not even sure who owns it now. It was some guy from Grand Rapids, but I heard that another guy from out of country bought it, and who knows. But that place is way out of balance. Like if you went in there and got a hold of somebody and wanted to know, well, how many gallons a day do you guys actually produce? Like nobody really knows. Everybody just has the job that they do, and it just kind of clicks along. Well, they fill the semi up, the semi leaves, another one comes, they fill it up, and that leaves. And it just clicks along. We out here don't really know, is that a profitable thing to do? You really don't know. You can't know. I know that they get a ton of subsidies to build and rebuild and buy the equipment that they have. I can't get those. If I could, and it was even, if it was spread out evenly, I would. Yeah. Because then you could build on. You could really make things go, but we don't get that. And I think that in order to get things straightened out, I told you guys I listened to RFK's speech when he threw his endorsement behind Trump, and a lot of what he was talking about was farming and farming related, and things have to change, right? Why are the factory farm, industrial ag, why are they getting help with taxpayer dollars, and why do we not get help? And I don't really even need, but low interest loans, that would be fair. You know, if we wanted to build a new building, get a low interest loan. Right now, we have to go to a bank. Do banks want to invest in farm properties? No, I tell you that right now. They don't even want it. They don't care that you got a bunch of equity. They'll loan you money on a car. But as far as building out structures on a small farm like this, no. Why? Because they'll say, oh, farms, you go to the USDA to get money. The USDA will laugh at you if you're milking 10 cows. But we milk 10 cows. We butcher, couple 300-400 chickens a week. We raise out 60, 70, 80 pigs a year. We do pig butchering, we do cattle butchering, we do a lot of things here, and all of those sources of income contribute to the overall profit of this, and we're paying people to help us. So we're providing employment in the community that's fair employment and safe employment. So why shouldn't small farms have the same opportunities that the big farms do? It should. And what can be changed at the highest levels in government? Well, the USDA, who do they work for? They work for the president. If he says you're going to make these loans and they're going to be equitable to everybody, not just the factory farms, they got to do it. So it could be something along those lines. And if that was the case, then you would see new farm families that have punched out of the system get themselves and revitalize these farms that are sitting. You see them all over the place. You can usually tell because there's a big red building sitting right in the middle of it. And that big red building is a liability if there's not operating. It needs to operate. They were designed to operate. Well, there you go. That's my message. It makes sense to me. Sometimes I try to pass things on, and I'm wondering if you guys actually got it. Maybe a few of you could give some input on here, and I can get an idea of how well I'm hitting the target. And Belva, I think we got cut off last week in the midst of me showing you the Little Giant water, and we will take that up again tomorrow night if that's okay. Brian Jacob is saying shot across the bow. What does that mean, brother? What does that mean? And Keith Sutton's with us. Oh, by the way, Keith Sutton is home from the hospital, and he is surpassing his home healthcare occupational therapist that said, I'm going to need you to walk 300 feet. And he's like, I did a quarter of a mile. I'm good. I'm rolling. Mark gave me 10 days to get off of my butt. So I did. But I'm kind of the one that got him in that predicament in the first place, because I got him all pumped up. And then he went up on a roof and fell off, or tried to fly off. Thought he was Superman. All right. But I've been talking to him this week, and he seems like he's doing okay. Good morale. Hey, Hilltop's with us. Hilltop Home Place. All right. Welcome. All right. Anybody got any input? If not, I'm going to roll. I got things to do. Okay. That's it. Remember, anyone can farm. Let's see. My message this week, I guess, me personally, is urgency. Urgency. He says, I forgot the cake. What cake? I don't know what you're talking about, man. Gonna have to enlighten me there. What cake? Oh, the yellow cake uranium. No, I don't know what cake you're talking about. Yeah, hey, getting crazy out there in politics, isn't it? Just going to be fun. The debate's coming up, and old Kamala's going to go up against the Trumpster. He's going to eat her lunch. This should be fun. I think I'm going to invite people over and have a case of beer. I think that's just going to be a riot. She screws the pooch every time she opens her mouth. It's really something. I look at the election, and I think that most of the morons that work for like Department of Agriculture that are really not good for agriculture. Cape. You forgot the cape. Oh, flying. Yeah, all right. They are Democrats, and so they will be emboldened if old Kamala lies her way into the White House again. I don't like her. I just don't. I mean, I would think black people would really be irritated with her by her putting on these airs of being a black woman. And always said she was, but now she's running for president, and she's, using ebonics. Like, I'm not impressed with that as a white guy, but if I was a black guy, I would be irritated with that. That would really, and she does the Southern black woman accent, and it's just hilarious, stupid. It's like she's hammered and she doesn't know how stupid she sounds. But I don't know. The whole thing seems like just an episode of Yellowstone or something. Like what's in the script for next week? This should get good. But yeah, things are clicking along. I'm still optimistic. I always have been. Maybe my optimism is just it only extends as far as the property lines, and I'm too dumb to know it. But I still think that, better days are ahead for the United States. Better things are ahead for agriculture. I listened to what Bobby Kennedy said, and I heard what Trump said, and those are not bold claims. They are things that can be done that are within their purview to change. When's the last time a politician really got hot and bothered about agriculture? They don't. They're eating all that garbage food in Washington. They grew up on it. That's what they eat. So they don't know anything about health. They don't know anything about mental health because they've been eating that garbage. They haven't been drinking milk. A lot of them are gay. Right? If you're not drinking raw milk, hey, Pottinger's cats. If you're drinking pasteurized milk, I wouldn't do that, Brian. I wouldn't do that. You know what can happen? Oh, but you just got married, so you're not gay. All right, that's it. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. Yeah, having a good time, living the life. We will talk to you guys tomorrow night if you are Tribe Plus people. If you're not, you can get signed up tomorrow. Go to bakersgreenacres.com, follow the links. It's less than a cup of coffee a week, as they say. And then you get to talk to yours truly. Anything you want to know about farming. If I know it, I can tell you. If not, I'll just make it up. All right, I'm going to get going. Remember, anyone can farm. See ya.